Think drinking from a smart water bottle will make you look like Jennifer Aniston? You may have to think again. Today we're diving into environmental toxins and what that means for obesity and diabetes. Hello, my friends. How are you? I'm doing fantastic. It's Dr. Yas here, and today we are tackling a critical and often overlooked topic, which is the link between environmental toxins, insulin resistance, and obesity. And so before we really dive into this topic, I find, especially in the medical community, it's a little controversial. And I understand why, but I also, deeply understand we can't ignore the topic. Before we dive in, I do want to say I'm having the best summer. This summer, I teamed up with Lockdown Farms. They are a local farm in Pennsylvania, and they pledge organic, and they deliver our groceries to us. And not all our groceries, but our produce, our eggs, milk, to our house once a week through the fall. And the reason I decided to team up with them was multifold. And I thought it was the perfect thing to talk about this episode because it really has brought me so much joy and health in my household. So what they do is they take small farms who pledge organic, because to get the organic certification is quite expensive. And as we know, our local farmers are absolutely struggling. And so what they do is they bring our groceries weekly, they deliver it to our house, so there's no third party. And in addition, I really do actually believe they're more organic than a certified organic company, and I'll tell you why. So these bigger farms that have more money, right, they get 2 weeks notice whenever they have a check for their organic produce. And I just found this out, and again, don't quote me, this is not for like a vapor, but once I heard that, I believed it, right? If you give someone 2 weeks notice, they absolutely could spray these crops to make them look good and be sellable, right? But then wash them in time for us to get them. And so I feel like when you're dealing with someone one-to-one, or you know who you're speaking with, right? Like a local farm, like Blacktown in Pennsylvania, I trust that they're going to give me organic produce, and I can see it. My produce, it doesn't look pretty, right? Some things are small, some things are big. And I made this awesome, like kind of zucchini with this purple cauliflower soup Sunday night, and I was really, just really enjoying my produce. And it's awesome because I don't pick the produce, right? They allow me to swap out, but they know I don't pick it. And because I don't pick it, I've been really having a lot of fun creating menus. I've even been using AI to help me like create some menus with it, and just having a field day with all the new produce in my house. So anyways, that was my step this summer to try to cut out pesticides, from my food, and especially things like glyphosate. We'll get into that today. So as we know, obesity and insulin resistance are on the rise globally, and recent studies have shown the significant link between environmental toxins and these conditions. Okay, and we'll be getting into a lot of little studies, but one by Singh et al. In 2019 showed the role of these environmental pollutants in disrupting our metabolic processes, leading to increased insulin resistance and obesity. And the study also pointed out that exposure to certain toxins can interfere specifically with our insulin signaling pathways and exacerbate the risk of developing metabolic disorders. There's so many other studies. Another one that I recently read in 2022 by Im et al. Expanded on these findings, showing that long-term exposure to environmental toxins such as endocrine-disrupting chemicals can significantly increase the risk of obesity. And they showed that chemicals, which are prevalent in all our everyday products, can absolutely alter our fat metabolism storage, contributing to the rising rates of obesity globally. And honestly, this kind of makes sense, right? If you think about it, if you grow up in a household, right, and everyone's using the same products in the house, right? This would be affecting everyone the same way. It may be more than just copying someone's behavior in the house or your genetics, right? It could be the behavior of using these kind of products. So anyways, another statistic, right? Since 1975, the prevalence of obesity has nearly tripled, okay? With approximately 1.9 billion adults worldwide now classified as overweight or obese. And don't get me wrong, I don't like get too hung up on the BMI, especially with overweight. I do feel a lot of people with, good muscle tone who work out will be classified overweight, and maybe even obese if it's extreme muscle. But I would say is, that rise is not a rise that's equivalent to the rise in bodybuilders, right? This rise is definitely seen due to extra fat storage, right? And we know for diabetes particularly, which is, of course, our focus on this podcast, that's an issue. So anyways, the surge in obesity is not solely due to this diet and lifestyle, but it actually is influenced by these environmental toxins. And so the goal of today's episode, okay, we're going to try to really, show you with evidence-based research the link between these toxins, insulin resistance, and obesity. And then because it's not in traditional medical practice to treat these things, we're going to be taking a functional medicine perspective on this one and really look at how the toxins are disrupting us metabolically, how it's contributing, and what we can kind of do about it. what we can avoid to try to reduce our toxin burden. Okay, so first, let's start by understanding the mechanisms through which this actually happens. So just to give you kind of like an overlay of what I want to cover today, we're going to be talking about the mechanisms through which toxins affect insulin signaling and our metabolic health, and then how this interferes with our body's natural processes leading to insulin resistance and weight gain. And then we'll be going over the most common environmental toxins contributing to the issue, from pollutants in the air, water, chemicals in our food, or household products. And then I'll show you the sources of a lot of these substances. And again, this is not exhaustive. I'm not a functional medicine practitioner. However, I do feel when my clients do incorporate these things in their regime, in addition to lifestyle, diet, or whatever, medications they're doing to jumpstart the process, the results fly. It really does affect a lot of us more than we think. And I think it's because it's something not seen, right? So we're going to go into how that's contributing to the issue, where it's coming from, how to avoid it, how to test for these toxins effectively for those who want to. Unfortunately, these tests are not covered by insurance. But I think, you deserve to know what's available to you. So we'll look at the various testing methods that can help identify these harmful substances. And finally, we'll go over holistic treatment strategies done in a functional medicine holistic perspective to mitigate the impact of the toxins on our health. And this, ranges from dietary changes to detoxification methods to lifestyle adjustments, natural remedies, and that way you can improve your overall health. And I do think in time, in my opinion, there'll be actually real FDA-approved medications targeting these things, but it's not done yet, so we have to do it this route. Okay, so let's dive in. We're going to discuss how these toxins are disrupting our metabolic processes and contributing to the risk of metabolic disorders, okay? So remember, we said that it interferes with insulin signaling, which is crucial, right, for blood glucose control. Because if you're diabetic, your insulin is, right, you have insulin resistance, meaning the insulin's not working. It's not getting the glucose into the cell to give us energy, which is its responsibility. So when environmental toxins bind to insulin receptors or associated signaling molecules, they basically hinder their function, okay? So you can imagine as if there's a key and insulin is the key to unlock the door. And imagine there's rust and stuff on the key and it's not fitting in perfectly, right? That's exactly how I would explain toxins with insulin resistance. So basically they're interfering the insulin from effectively facilitating the glucose uptake in the cells, leading to elevated blood glucose levels and subsequent insulin resistance. A major category of these endocrine disruptors is bisphenol A or BPA and phthalates. So these chemicals mimic or interfere with the body's hormones, particularly those involved in metabolism. So these endocrine disruptors bind to the hormone receptors, right, alter the function of the insulin and the metabolic hormones, and basically it leads to impaired glucose uptake. And remember, we've discussed in previous episodes what happens. Glucose generally goes to 3 places, okay? It goes to a lot of places, right? But after insulin does what it's supposed to do, it's either going to go to the muscle, the fat, or the liver for the most part. That's where most of it's going, right? And so that will lead, right? If we can't get the glucose into the muscle, the normal ways we need for energy, it's going to lead to increased fat storage and a higher risk for insulin resistance and issues like fatty liver, etc. So there's a growing body of evidence linking specific toxins to this insulin resistance, okay? So studies are showing that exposure to pesticides like DDT or environmental pollutants like TCDD, and I'll have the exact spelling of those on the bottom. Friend second, endocrinologist third. I am not a linguist, okay? So I'm not going to try to attempt to say that out loud, okay? But I will link that to the show notes, okay? And these DDT and TCDD can impair insulin signaling pathways, leading to insulin resistance. So I want to dive into some of the studies that show concrete evidence of these connections, because I'll be honest, in the medical, society, a lot of times we're trained to kind of not take this stuff as seriously, and it's a cultural thing. It's not actually formally in our training, but I do find that your doctor may not know about these things, and so it's up to you to educate yourself and help yourself, right, by knowing about these things. So one study in 2019 by Singh et al. This was a nice one. It was critically reviewed the role of environmental pollutants and metabolic disease. And so these researchers did a comprehensive analysis of 23 prime studies, okay, linking pollutant exposure to insulin resistance. And what they found, right, is that pollutants like persistent organic pollutants, known as POPs, significantly interfere with insulin signaling, and this develops insulin resistance, which again is our issue in type 2 diabetes. So the study just really emphasized the need for standardized testing strategies to identify and prioritize metabolic disruptors. And again, there is a lot of people in this field, and a lot of good companies who are dealing with this, and I'll get into that when we get to the testing area that I'm just so impressed with. But yeah, we need to do better for sure. And another study, right, by Im et al. Examined TCDD, dioxin, on insulin signaling in skeletal muscles, okay? And they found even a low-dose exposure to TCDD inhibited insulin-stimulated glucose uptake and translocation of glucose transporter 4, or also known as GLUT4, which is very crucial for glucose metabolism. And so this exposure to TCDD also reduced the expression of key insulin signaling molecules and impaired mitochondrial activities, leading to increased oxidative stress. And basically, in summary, basically means you're aging, okay? And your mitochondrial activity is absolutely pivotal for your health. And this was totally independent from traditional risk factors like diet and physical activity, which I think the mainstream thought is that, diet is caused by, diet and physical activity. And we've gone into, in other episodes, the other causes here, but I really want to emphasize this is completely a separate issue, right? So another thing that has just not been addressed for most people suffering from diabetes. So in 2016, a study by Cheng et al., they looked at the association between serum dioxins, abdominal obesity, and insulin resistance in a population living in a near, a contaminated area. And by the way, when you move somewhere, they don't tell you if you're in a contaminated area. You know what I mean? I feel like I wish when I bought my house, I had studied the soil, the water, but, you learn. Anyways, the researchers found that men, right, in the highest quintiles for specific dioxins and significantly higher adjusted odds ratio for insulin resistance. And the study provided strong epidemiological evidence linking persistent organic pollutants to metabolic disruptions and highlighted the elevated risk of insulin resistance in those with higher exposure levels. And the studies go on and on. I'm just highlighting a few that I thought were good. Again, do your own research and read more, but they're pointing to the same thing. So again, Chevalier et al. In 2016, he reviewed evidence linking endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, to metabolic disorders. And what they discussed is how EDCs are found in our everyday products, and they can mimic and block hormone action, leading to adverse effects on insulin synthesis, secretion, signaling. And I highlighted how exposure to BPA and other EDCs can lead to significant metabolic disruptions, including insulin resistance, obesity, both in animal models and human studies. So to further illustrate the impact of these toxins, a study by Rosen et al. In 2010 investigated effects of POPs on insulin resistance in rats. And the rats were exposed to POPs through the consumption of crude fish oil. The study found that exposure to these pollutants led to the development of insulin resistance and abdominal obesity and liver steatosis. So basically, it showed a clear causal link between POP exposure and metabolic disorders, underscoring the significant impact of these environmental toxins on our metabolic health. So these are just some studies really just giving you real evidence, right, before we really dive deep into all the effort you're going to have to do to kind of get these out of your life, okay? And so that's why I did start this talk with all these studies, because I do feel like in my head, and I'm assuming even say originally, that this was something that was not as big of a deal as it absolutely is. And now through my learning and in practice, I'm finding it's just helping people incredibly, including myself, really avoiding these kind of things. So now what I want to do is really discuss how it's directly, messing with our physiological functions, okay, leading to these metabolic conditions that we're dealing with. So one of the primary ways these toxins affect our health is by triggering an inflammatory response and oxidative stress. It's one of the main reasons I always propose the anti-inflammatory diet, particularly for my diabetic patients, but in general, because when these toxins, they enter the body, right, they cause an immune reaction leading to inflammation. And that inflammation impairs insulin signaling by interfering with pathways that insulin uses to regulate the blood sugar level. So what I wanted to emphasize is that diabetes particularly is an inflammatory condition, right? The sugar leads to inflammation in every organ of our body. Okay. And so if you have other things leading to inflammation outside of your diabetes that are further messing up the insulin signaling and worsening the diabetes, leading to more inflammation, right? This is like a terrible cascade that goes around and around and around. So think of it as diabetes, high sugar, inflammation, right? Toxins, more inflammation, worse insulin signaling, insulin signaling, worse diabetes. And the cycle goes on. And who knows where it started, but all we know is it's going around and around and around. No. Additionally, oxidative stress, which results from the production of free radicals, damages cells and tissues, exacerbating insulin resistance and contributing to metabolic syndrome, right? So we're destroying our cells at a cellular level, and we're wondering to ourselves, why can't the insulin communicate with the cells? Well, this is a very good reason why. So again, basically, if we're destroying things at a cellular level, how is it going to communicate to the insulin, right? So this combination of inflammation and oxidative stress is basically a significant factor in the pathogenesis of insulin resistance and obesity. And there's a study by Hong et al. In 2009, which investigated the relation between environmental chemical exposure and oxidative stress in urban adult populations. I really like this study because I work in an urban adult population in Jersey City, and the researchers measured urinary levels of various chemical exposure biomarkers and oxidative stress markers in 960 adults, okay? And they found a significant dose-responsive relationship between chemical exposure and oxidative stress, which in turn affected the indicators of insulin resistance, particularly glucose levels. And this study highlights the critical role of oxidative stress in the development of insulin resistance to environmental toxin exposure. So there's also numerous studies looking at chronic exposure to specific toxins like dioxins and mercury with increased risk of insulin resistance. So for example, in a study by Chang et al. In 2011, they examined the effects of dioxin and mercury exposure on insulin resistance in a population living near a contaminated site. And the research conducted, it was a cross-sectional study of 1,449 non-diabetic residents, okay? So non-diabetic. And they measured metabolic syndrome-related factors like serum dioxin, blood mercury levels. And significantly, they found the individuals with higher levels of the toxins had significantly increased odds of insulin resistance, with the joint highest tertile, right, of serum dioxins and blood mercury associated with an 11-fold increase in the odds of elevated HOMA-IR score, okay, which is a marker of insulin resistance. And the study showed, very strong evidence between the link of chronic toxin exposure and the risk of developing insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. And I mean, these studies just keep going on and on. I mean, 2013, great all, right? They provided evidence linking chronic exposure to basically PCBs, which is polychlorinated biphenyls, with impaired carbohydrate metabolism. And they conducted experiments on diabetic-prone mice exposed to these PCB mixture. And they observed that the PCB exposure produced hyperinsulinemia and exacerbated both the insulin resistance in lean and obese mice. And this change occurred without marked effects on body weight, indicating that exposure independently disrupted insulin signaling, right? Because again, as a society, we blame weight for diabetes, and that is a big, contributing risk factor. Absolutely. We know the science behind that. I'll have a whole episode on that as well. I found it absolutely interesting that PCB was an independent risk factor despite weight, okay? And that goes more toward the fact that obesity is on the rise, but diabetes is even more on the rise, right? These toxins are absolutely affecting us. So just to summarize, right, the environmental toxins we were discussing today are the dioxins, mercury, persistent organic pollutants. All these are absolutely affecting, our insulin signaling response. So one more toxin I want to discuss that's, on all our crops, all our food is glyphosate, okay? Glyphosate is one of those really big endocrine disruptors. It absolutely has been shown in multiple studies. If you just Google it, you'll see like a ton of studies. I'm not going to get into individual ones here because I do find this is one of the ones that is more maybe common knowledge to people now. And so basically glyphosate absolutely interrupts insulin signaling. It causes more fat in the torso area, and it's a huge endocrine disruptor. Okay, and it's basically sprayed on everything, even things like that are healthier, like considered healthy. And so the way you can think about these things is the more porous the food is, right, the more it can uptake these kind of things, okay? So before we dive into the next segment, okay, I want to talk about the blood tests, and then we'll talk about what you can do functionally to try to remove these toxins or prevent them from going up in the first place. So blood tests are commonly used to detect acute and chronic exposure to things like heavy metals and some organic pollutants. They did a study by Chang et al., and they saw in 2014 that blood tests effectively measured both recent and past exposures to these toxins. It showed that, blood tests can work very well. And there's a lot of companies out there like Vibrant Labs, Rupa Health, that have the heavy metal testing. That's very good. I know Mark Hyman. He's an amazing functional practitioner, medical doctor who, he talks a lot about this stuff on his podcast, but he also has his own functional health lab. And I know they're doing big steps to really test all of these kind of things. I don't know if it's fully out there yet, but last I checked, they were definitely getting started on all that stuff. So anyways, the next way you can test it, right, doesn't necessarily have to be through the blood. So now they have urine tests, right? And these measure metabolites of toxins, providing an indication of recent exposure. Okay, so for instance, phthalates, BPA can be detected through the urine analysis. And research by Califat et al. In 2008 showed the urine tests are very reliable in looking at these. So it's really nice because it can tell you, recently, have you been exposed to these things, especially if you noticed a sudden shift in your body. It also showed that urine biomonitoring could be a really effective way to see if your environment is, serving you. And again, I know Vibrant Labs has a total tox burden. That's a urine test. That's absolutely fantastic. The next thing is hair analysis. I don't know if you guys did hair analysis in school for drug testing. My school in South Carolina was really strict. They would take like a huge chunk of our hair and just cut it from the root to check for drug testing. But anyways, I didn't really love that on my hair back then. But now they have hair analysis samples that can look at things like heavy metals, and they don't require nearly as much hair as they took off in high school for me. So anyways, so these hair samples, they look at long-term exposure, right? Because the hair grows long, it has a lot of history to, heavy metals. and substances that accumulate in the hair over time. So in a study by Noack et al. In 2011, it showed that hair analysis is absolutely useful for looking at chronic exposure to metals like arsenic and mercury. And it really gives you, insight to your history. So kind of to summarize that area, right? You have blood testing, you have urine testing, you have hair testing you can do, right? And these can look for heavy metals, mycotoxins, environmental pollutants. If you're feeling like something is wrong with your body and something's going on, you really want to check for these toxins. These labs are absolutely available. Are they covered by insurance? Not yet. For a lot of them. Okay. I think you can do certain testing, right, for certain metals, through your blood at the doctor's office. But generally, most of these functional environmental toxin labs are not covered by insurance. So these comprehensive panels assess a wide range of environmental toxins, including heavy metals, POP, volatile, organic compounds, or known as VOCs. A nice study, Pizzorno et al. 2015, they looked at the importance of comprehensive panels to detect multiple toxin exposures simultaneously. And the study found that using a broad spectrum toxin panel could actually effectively identify a variety of pollutants, okay, and accurately diagnose and, guide your treatment planning. So now I want to dive into kind of how you can avoid or reduce exposure to these toxins, okay? Because basically, say these testing, right, is not like in your reach, or it's, it's expensive, no doubt about it. But I would still actually go check it out if you can. But if you can't, right, we want to just reduce what we're exposed to, okay? So the first thing is, when you can afford it, I always tell my patients, they'll come up to me in my office and we'll talk about their diabetes, or just, their regimen, hopefully weaning them off medications and working on lifestyle and diet. I will show you a supplement for whatever is the hot supplement at the time, right? I want to tell them is, I want you to save your $30 a month. Like, not that the supplement doesn't work, not that it's absolutely not awesome, but we need to prevent the damage first before trying to change anything, right? So start by using that $30 a month to get more organic produce, to lower your intake of harmful chemicals that is seen in conventional farming, okay? And there's so many studies on this. In Curl et al. In 2015, they saw if you ate more organic food, you had a lower level of pesticide metabolites, like glyphosate, okay, in their urine compared to those who consumed conventionally grown produce. It showed that, basically organic food actually does reduce pesticide exposure. It lowers the risk of health issues. Now, the other thing you want to do is avoid processed food, okay? Because processed food often contains artificial additives, preservatives that are harmful to your health. Just to highlight one study by Farnett and Rock in 2014, looked at diets high in processed foods, and they linked this to exposure to these chemicals, right? The study highlighted the negative impact of consuming these additives, such as increased inflammation and disruption of metabolic processes. And so by minimizing this, you can reduce your exposure to these harmful substances. So say you have a chicken sandwich with all the toppings, whatever you want, right? And you get the same chicken sandwich at McDonald's, right? And we notice, there's so many people who do like supersize meat of this or that. Why we're noticing such a bigger effect when you're getting it from these places? And I think these processed foods, they have all these chemicals. And I do think even if it was calorically equivalent, right, you're much better off cooking at home. So the next thing is lifestyle modifications, okay? One thing is you can use natural cleaning products. If you're not doing the cleaning and maybe you have a service coming every couple of weeks or something like that, that's definitely a place to ask them about natural cleaning products, because these chemical exposures to the home, right? So opting for natural cleaning products minimizes the presence of chemicals like ammonia and bleach. And in 2013, they showed the benefits of using non-toxic cleaning alternatives. Using these non-toxic cleaning alternatives is just so much better for us. It maintains cleanliness, reducing indoor air pollution and exposure to these toxic substances. The other thing is avoiding plastic containers for food storage, right? So obviously, if you have to meal prep and you don't have a glass container, you're better off eating the salad than obsessing over plastic. But in your arsenal, you should definitely have some glass containers at home. Because preventing leaching from harmful chemicals from glass containers into food is essential, especially when these containers are heated. And it showed those who avoided plastic containers had lower levels of things like BPA in the urine, suggesting reduced exposure. So the other thing is you want to opt for non-toxic personal care products, okay? This is one, especially for women, cosmetics. A lot of our personal care products have phthalates, parabens, and other harmful chemicals. And so Dodson et al. In 2012 showed that choosing products labeled phthalate-free or paraben-free definitely lowers your exposure to these substances. And they showed that those who use non-toxic products had lower levels of those in the body, okay? So just to summarize, right, to reduce your toxin exposure, choose organic foods when you can, right? I'd rather you cut supplements and focus on stopping and taking these foods. To minimize processed foods, use natural cleaning products, use non-toxic personal care products, okay? And then by doing that, you can really reduce your exposure to these environmental toxins. Okay, in this last section, what I'm going to discuss is holistic treatment strategies. It's not going to be totally exhaustive because these protocols, they can be, 9 months. They're legitimate protocols and legitimate things take time, all right? But I'm going to just kind of dive a little bit into the detoxification protocols that support liver function, maintain your gut health, and different stress reduction techniques, all backed by evidence-based research, okay? So let's start with the detoxification protocols, okay? They're essential for helping us basically eliminate these toxins. So first, you need to prevent, you need to get these things, not coming back in, because if you take things out, but you're still putting it back in, it's kind of useless. So first up is definitely nutritious support. Things like cruciferous vegetables like broccoli. And there's also a supplement called broccoli sprout that has like the highest amount of like sulfur containing things. So vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and similar ingredients contain glucosinolates. And these are compounds that break down into biologically active like sulforaphane during digestion, which activates phase 2 detoxification enzymes like glutathione S-transferases. And these enzymes basically help neutralize and excrete carcinogens and other toxins. And the study by Fay et al. In 2012 highlighted the role of cruciferous vegetables in activating detoxification pathways and enhancing our body's ability to process and eliminate harmful substances. So another one is berries. They have high antioxidants like vitamin C, polyphenols, and they support neutralization of free radicals and enhance phase 2 detoxification enzymes. And they also contain fiber, which helps bind toxins in the digestive tract and promote their excretion. Another thing is garlic and onions. They're rich in sulfur-containing compounds like allicin, and these foods support synthesis of glutathione, again, a crucial antioxidant, for detoxification. And these compounds induce phase 2 enzymes, supporting the liver's detox capacity. Grapefruit contains neurogenin, a flavonoid that enhances activity of cytochrome P450 enzymes in the liver, aiding metabolism and clearance of toxins. Other great foods, definitely are root vegetables, things like celery, carrots, parsnips, parsley. These are rich in vitamins A, C, and E. They have bioactive compounds that support liver health, and basically the overall detoxification process. And vitamin A particularly, it helps maintain those mucosal barriers that get really disrupted from the inflammation from these chemicals, while vitamin C is just a very potent antioxidant. The next thing is water. I know it sounds silly, but water is essential for maintaining the flow of fluids that carry waste products through the kidney and for excretion in the urine. So basically, adequate hydration will support the transport of these things out of your body. So things like micthyl, which contains silymarin, which promotes regeneration of liver cells. And that enhances your liver's ability to detoxify various harmful substances. Because remember, the liver's job is to detoxify. But when it's filled with sugar and fatty liver and having to process all these things, good luck getting your sugar under control if it's all backed up, right? There's a nice study to sport showing that silymarin increases levels of glutathione and superoxide dismutase in the liver, enhancing detox capacity. And you may have heard of this one is NAC and acetylcysteine. This serves as a precursor to glutathione, okay? And this boosts itself in the body. And glutathione, like we've been discussing, is so critical for phase 2 detoxification, where it conjugates with toxins to make them more water soluble and basically enables them to be secreted. And then all these things that are making glutathione, there is also just glutathione, okay? And glutathione is a major antioxidant involved in detoxifications of heavy metals and those persistent organic pollutants we were discussing, pivotal basically to neutralize reactive oxygen species and conjugation of toxins for excretion. And the next one I want to discuss is omega-3 fatty acids. See, omega-3 fatty acids absolutely reduce inflammation and support integrity of the cell membrane, which is so, like we said, messed up from all this inflammation from the toxins, from sugar, especially diabetes. And so this is very vital for proper cellular function and detoxification processes. And it also influences the expression of genes involved in inflammation and detoxification. A lot of people swear by sweating therapies. I think they can be very effective if you hydrate adequately with it. If you don't hydrate enough, right, like half your body ounces of water to compensate, this could do more harm than good. Things like saunas promote sweating, which help excrete toxins. Exercise also increases circulation. Sweating aids in the removal of toxins. I love an Epsom salt bath. This is perfect. This is something very doable, right? You have to get bathed anyway. And this provides magnesium, which absolutely supports these detoxification processes. Another study by Crinian et al. In 2011, and there's so many studies like this, but it shows the benefit of sweating therapies and detoxification, and shows that regular sweating can increase the excretion of these toxins. So now I want to get into a couple other things that also support the liver more than just what we discussed. So other herbs besides micthyl, like dandelion root, promotes bile production and liver detoxification. Things like burdock supports liver health and detoxification. So what I want to also highlight is things about gut health. So things like probiotics and prebiotics definitely maintain a healthy microbiome of the gut. And that helps with detoxification, right? So again, all things that have to do with glucose, right? Metabolism, our liver, our gut, right? So a study by Braun et al. In 2017 looked at the role of probiotics in maintaining a healthy gut microbiome, showing basically it can help with these detoxification pathways. So another thing is just pure fiber intake, okay? We want to enhance toxin excretion by binding toxins in the digestive tract and facilitating their elimination, okay? There's many studies looking at dietary fiber enhancing these toxin elimination, increased fiber intake, showing that it improves your digestive health and supports detoxification. And I wanted to also take some time to talk about, oxidative stress, okay, like to wrap things up. I think mind-body practices like yoga, meditation, deep breathing, they're seen in many studies showing that these reduce our stress levels and support overall health and enhance detoxification. And another thing is adequate sleep, right? Our natural detoxification pathways that happen when we sleep is absolutely pivotal. There's research by Z et al. In 2013 that found sleep enhances the clearance of metabolic waste from the brain. Okay, probably our most important asset, right? And this is highlighting the importance of sleep and maintaining your overall health. So that sleep when I'm dead mentality just does not work for detoxification. And so basically, to summarize, integrating these holistic strategies by detoxifying, avoiding these things that are harming our bodies, nutritional support, sweating therapies, liver support, gut health, stress reduction, are all evidence-based, okay? They provide a very comprehensive approach to your diabetes. So I want you to remember, small changes lead to huge improvements in your health, okay? So if I could give you one prescription on the Vitality prescription today, is that look at yourself a little more holistically, okay? Go outside the box if you feel like you've been doing everything and nothing is working. Maybe start by incorporating just 1 or 2 strategies to eliminate toxins, okay? And then each month, maybe build up a couple more. And then once you've really gone there and you've maybe done some testing, right? And the change, not only with their diabetes and their weight, but their life is just mind-blowing. So I encourage you to think a little bit outside the box if things are not working for you. And that's all I got for you. I'll see you guys in the next one.